Hi, Bryan. This is Niladri Chaudhary, CEO of Excellentro and the Chief Organizer for the DevOps India Summit. And this initiative that we are doing is for a group of that we had started as part of the DevOps India Summit is for the DevOps for executives. And what we thought was that executives, the senior management also needs to learn, also needs to be handholded as they are used to doing things in a particular way. So we started off with a meetup, but because of the COVID, we could not continue with the physical meetup. So at least this whole year, we are doing a lot of these interviews and panel discussions and so on, starting from Dr. Tapo Protopal, John Willis, Charity Majors, Niall Murphy, Ross Stanton. We have got many great people, and 2021 we are starting with you. So welcome and happy new year. Be safe and have a very prosperous new year. So let me introduce Bryan first. So Bryan Fenster is a staff software engineer in Walmart Labs. He has been a software developer since 1996, developing supply chain solutions for many large enterprises. He's a passionate practitioner and an evangelist for the principles, technical practices, metrics, observability, and culture of community sharing and learning required to improve organizational outcomes. He currently leads a DevOps Dojo for a large enterprise which focuses on helping teams transition to a continuous flow of value delivery using immersive learning techniques. So welcome, Bryan, once again.
Thanks so much. I'm honored to be in that lofty company of other people that you've been talking
to. Great. So, Bryan, to start with, let me ask a question which is related to, we are both in the book club of Better, Sooner, Safer, Happier. Yeah. And I keep looking at your comments there. So, taking it from there, what is your experience in terms of the various places that you have worked and various places that you interact with people as to how do you see what is the current scenario as compared to what is to be achieved by Sooner, Safer, Happier?
I'd say that where we are currently is that a lot of people are trying to figure things out, especially at leadership level, that they want change, they hear about this change, and they have no idea how to get there for the most part. It's also, I see repeatedly this idea that, there's people that can sell us the change. There's all these smart people. All we do is just buy the change from them, apply it to the teams in our organization, and everything will be fine. And it's just not true. Every organization is completely different. They have their own context, they have their own culture, and you can't layer on someone else's process and get the outcomes you want.
Right. So, where do you think is the biggest problem in your experience? Is it the senior management? Is it the execution? Or do you think, as the authors have talked about, the pressurized middle?
It's all of it. Honestly, I'm just finalizing a white paper with IT Revolution right now, where I'm talking about the strategy you have to have and the holistic approach to change. It has to be a completely integrated approach. You have to have teams who are trying to change. You have to have executives who are incentivizing change down through their entire leadership chain. You have to have the outcomes, objective, measurable outcomes that are trying to be achieved by the organization. You have to have a really disciplined approach to it. It's not either any one of those things. It's all of it together. Everybody has to work together to be pulling the same way. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, this is right. But what comes out, what I see here is that it has to start with somebody. And
I agree. My experience has been that really It's probably going to start either with somebody at the very top saying, hey, we need to change something, and getting people interested in grassroots, right? The engineers. Or it'll be an engineer or a group of engineers trying to convince someone that we need to make things better because we can do this. And then growing that and spreading it from the ends towards the middle, right? Mm-hmm. I'll say that I've made a lot of mistakes in my past trying to make change happen, right? Trying to force the change, driving people to the change, ignoring middle management because, well, they're not on board. I'm not going to waste my time. I'll just talk to the executives and I'll talk to my peers and we'll just get it done. And those are huge mistakes. I really, bringing everybody in, explaining, selling, giving people the real information about why we're trying to change, what the expected outcomes will be, instead of just do this thing. All of that's super important.
Great. So we all agree that it has to be one common shared objective, and then things work, and that collaboration needs to be there. Now, one of the questions I keep getting when I do my training or consulting, predominantly, if you have seen, India is system integrators are more, and there are few captives like say Target or various other companies. The captives are the Wells Fargo and all. The customers uses a lot of system integrators into their system. And if you look at it traditionally, the fun part is you have, let's say, X company who is developing the software. There is another Y company who is testing the software. And then there is another Z company who is providing the infrastructure. And each one have their own deliverables based on the contracts that they have done. And everybody is focused on somehow trying to deliver and satisfy the contractual obligation. Now, in organizations that we have worked, or now that things are changing, how do you see, or do you at all see that there is change in the way of handling or working with the SIs, or whether the SIs have changed their modalities of delivery?
The environments I've worked in, it's mostly been things that we're building, and not so much trying to manage contracts between vendors who are doing these disparate things. But I'll say that the principles apply. Our goal as a business is to deliver value. All other things are secondary to that. Anything we look at the flow of value. I talk a lot about value stream management, value stream architecture. We're architecting a flow of value through the organization. And if we see problems like poor contracts, handoffs between a team that one company's developing and another company's testing, those impede value delivery. We have to fix those. Those are defects. We can't just say, well, how do we make this current structure better? You can't. You have to improve the structure. The organization is perfectly designed for the outcome it has. If we want different outcomes, we have to change the organization.
Great. So, taking cue from what you've said, today I hear a lot of the predictions, a lot of the people talking about the value stream management. And for that matter, value has always been talked at in Agile for a very long time. And now with the Agile 4, we have seen the specific service value system. And it's great. Now, whenever I go to a company, I see that people are looking at only their part. Even if they are doing some value stream mapping, I'm not even talking about management, so only value stream mapping.
Yeah.
They are bothered about, I'm part of the testing, so my value stream. I mean, to me, that is not a value stream anyway. Value stream means end-to-end, from the time the change is requested till the time the change is deployed. How do you get people to be motivated to come together? And do you think, again, there is some play from the top management and only then it works? How do you get everybody involved?
It really depends. Early adopters don't need top-down push. They just don't. They want things to be better. They feel things are wrong. They just need to be shown how things can be better to break them out of the mold that they're in, right? I mean, they're doing the thing they're doing because they think it's the right thing. So you have to explain to them how it can be better so that they can shift that way of thinking. Everybody else will probably need some more incentives. They're working the way they're working because they're successful in that way of working. I talk about, if you want a different culture, you have to change the environment to evolve the culture, right? It's Darwinism. People are going to do the thing that makes them successful. If we want things to be different, we have to make them less successful at what they're doing now to help them move to better solutions to get to better outcomes. And yes, it absolutely takes executive leadership saying we need these things to improve in these measurable ways, and supporting those who are trying to do that. One of the things I see frequently is you'll have those passionate people on the front lines. Gene Kim and the Unicorn Project, he calls them the red shirts, running the rebellion. And I call it the thin red line because it's very thin. Every company has that thin red line of people trying to make it better. And if they don't have the support from the top and the interaction from the top to try to broaden that red line, make it more, make the change agents as a thing resilient, right? If that's not happening, it will fall apart. And you just have to have that structure.
So maybe I'll ask you to expand a little bit more on the value stream management part of it. And I think value stream mapping, everybody knows about it, but how we get into the value stream management and why it is important, what are those specific things that is to be highlighted in terms of a value stream management?
For me, it's focusing on the customer. I've my entire career as a developer, I've been focusing on the people who need what I'm building. I've not been focusing on, well, for most cases, I'm actually writing a post right now where I failed at this. Most of the time, I've not been focusing on my desires. I focused on their desires, their needs. And if you're focusing on the customer, then you're going to make sure that you have a value stream that meets their needs. It's that product management around their need. And for me, that's just the way to think about it, is if I'm focusing on the customer, I'm going to do the right thing. And I'm going to make sure that we manage that value stream to provide that need to them.
So certain frameworks Agile frameworks have value stream management as part of it, right? And so how do you see Agile coach helping in the adoption of people thinking more in terms of the entire value stream, looking at it holistically, and finally looking at what you said, the end customer, what satisfies them?
Well, I'll say that I have this opinion about frameworks, and this goes for development frameworks, and it goes for Agile frameworks, is that a framework was created to solve somebody else's problem. If you have that problem, that framework might work for you. The best advice I have for any Agile coach is to be agile about it. Look at where we are. What is the context we are in? Look at our goals. How do we remove waste and improve quality through the value stream to deliver better value to the customer? Be critical about that. Be critical about what you think you know. Don't go off of previous experience of this worked in another company. Apply the principles, not cookie cutter the practices. It's so important. And if you do that, you're not going to get quick wins. But you're not going to get quick wins anyway. You might get quick veneer of win and then step away and go to the next company, but you won't get real win quickly. But you will get lasting, resilient change if you drive those principles.
Today in the Predict 2021, around 10 o'clock is my session. So 10 o'clock my time. So there, one of the points I have predicted is that there will be more and more convergence of these different initiatives like Agile, DevOps, SRE. They will all converge into one, which is going to be what we need to do to provide, to create, or rather co-create that value for the customer. What do you think?
I think people look at these things as disparate things today. I think that they've always been converged. I've talked to people who asked me about, should I do Agile or should I do DevOps? I said, okay, just let's define our terms. DevOps is how the organization is working together to deliver value to the customer. It's everything. It's not developers and operations. It's the entire organization. Agile practices are core to DevOps. SRE is a good tool for we're trying to make sure that we have resilient systems and give back pressure to developers to make sure that we have quality feedback. These are all core to that flow of value. And we find where we have gaps in our value stream and apply the right tool to fill the gap. That's just what it is. And so if we're not looking at DevOps as the holistic thing, and we're looking at it as a team or a role, then we're doing it wrong. DevOps is everything.
I completely agree. So now looking at this, how do we tie observability into the whole value stream?
From day one, the thing I focus on the most is how do we execute continuous delivery. And when you're doing continuous delivery, the way we've traditionally done development is we focus on a whole bunch of features and then we put it in production and then clean up the mess. Continuous delivery, operations comes first, not development. We focus as developers on how we operate. We build pipelines, we ship something down the pipeline, we build observability into the pipeline, we build observability into the tiny thing we ship down the pipeline, we build all the instrumentation in, we ship features, validate that instrumentation. We use features to verify that all the operations things we're thinking about actually function correctly. And it's a different way of thinking, but if you really think about it as a quality initiative and an operational support initiative and not a feature delivery initiative, then continuous delivery makes a lot more sense. You don't get pushback on why should I deliver every single day. You should deliver every single day, not because you need a feature change every single day, to verify the pipeline. We are green. If something breaks in production, we know we can fix it. And so you have to think of all those things at the very start.
Nicely said. So if I want to extend observability and say that when everything is related to people, process, technology, how do we, or rather, is it right or wrong to say that we need to look at observability not only from the technology aspect, but also from the process and people?
Oh, 100%. So I've got this information I've put together about how to balance metrics. That you have to have a balanced set of metrics to improve. You can't focus on delivery speed without focusing on defect rates, right? You have to bring them both up. But the other thing is that, when we're talking about measuring things, you're measuring, how efficient we are, how effective we are. You also have to measure health. And you have to balance all three of those as well. You can make a team incredibly efficient by driving efficiency metrics. And if you ignore team health, you'll get short-term efficiency and then the team burns out and collapses. You have to think of team health. You have to think of application health. Team resiliency is just as important as application resilience. You build teams that don't have silos in them because you need resilient applications. You focus on your business by focusing on the team. And it's very important to measure that continuously.
Nice. I thought, let me ask this. So from here, what we are looking at is observability is fine, the technology, CI/CD, everything is fine. Now, the next question is, how do we make things work better the if we look at the three ways, we see the third way, which is experimentation and learning, a continuous improvement process, and practice brings mastery, right? So from that point of view, how do you see that we should engage or plan our work so that we have the third way also going ahead?
Oh, I wrote a blog post about this recently about utilization of teams, right? That if you have a team and you're focusing on maximizing utilization of a team, that's a really common thing. We're going to maximize the throughput of the team, make sure they're 100% utilized. And it puzzles me because manufacturing would never want a factory to be 100% utilized. 100% utilized road is called a parking lot. If in my experience, if we have 100% CPU utilization, we usually wind up in a war room to figure out why. But team 100% utilization seems to be fine. But the fact is that every day you're not trying to improve something, you're actually getting worse. Tech debt increases, skills decrease. Everyone's heads down being tactical about today's delivery and not being strategic about tomorrow's delivery. And eventually you grind to a halt because you can no longer deliver. We have to be spending time on how do we do things better? How do we come up with better ideas? What's better for the product? What's better for how we deliver the product? What is our improvement plan? And then we should have actual improvement items as part of our backlog all the time that are prioritized. And it's got to be there, or again, short-term efficiency wins, long-term value decrease.
All right. So the learning has to be there, experimentation has to be there, and nowadays taking into account the point that customer doesn't know what they want, they have a wish and a hope.
Yeah.
I fully agree to it, because when I go to, let's say, buy a cloth from a shop, I don't have, I know I need a trouser, I need a t-shirt or a shirt. That's all that I have. It's only when I go to the shop, then there is this provider who is the shop, the person at the counter. Then we both keep interacting and they keep showing whatever, and they keep changing based on what I'm liking and what I'm not liking. And then we both together decide on something.
I really like that analogy. That's really good.
So thank you. But when we come to IT, we say, oh, we have a whole list of items which has been signed off.
Yeah.
And what have we signed off? So, and that's the reason maybe we are getting a lot of these hypothesis-based experimentations coming in. So what do you see? Do you see more and more hypothesis-based experimentation instead of that large set of projects which will run for the 12, 18, 24 months?
I wish I could say yes, we should, but we honestly, and I talk to a lot of companies, and no, we don't. And I spend a lot of time trying to simplify things. That's really my thing. Is I don't like cognitive load. I can't focus on giant concepts and vague things. I need simple, direct things. And I've come up with a way to simplify the Agile mindset. The requirements are wrong, or we misunderstood them, or they'll change before we deliver. And so we're creating an entire system of delivery from all aspects of delivery around this truth, because it's absolutely true. The customer only thinks they know what they want until they see it. And the bigger thing we deliver, the more wrong it is and the more change will have to be, or just not useful at all. And so, yes, we should be focusing on that. We should be predicting the value that'll be delivered before we deliver it and instrumenting for that value. We should absolutely be doing that. We're spending way too much money today not doing that. I saw a report recently that poor quality in software engineering costs the United States like, was it $1 trillion a year or something? It's insane. It's just fiscally irresponsible for companies not to focus on this.
Gartner also earlier had mentioned based on survey, that 70%, 70% of the project costs are because of rework.
Yeah, and I've seen, there's statistics out there to show that 40% of code is actually used. The other 60%, the features are just, nobody cares.
Absolutely. That's what Microsoft, I think, also has a white paper saying that, I was hearing from Niall Murphy, that any new feature, it's only 1/3 which adds a delight or a satisfaction to the customer, which they like, which means that there is 2/3 which is still out there, of which 1/3 again, they are saying that the customer is not bothered. I mean, they are neither happy nor sad about that 1/3, whether that feature is there or not.
Yeah.
But the worrying part is another 1/3 is there, which actually creates a negative impact on the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So, from a SRE's point of view, they were saying that should we be focused on something which we are very sure, 100% sure that it is a probability that the system will break, so take care of that, or should we take care of 33% probability that it might be good? So
I'm of the opinion that everything is probably terrible until someone says it's good, and that we can't test for value, we can't test for quality, right? All we can do is deliver and find out, and then make sure that our tests agree with what the customer says is value and quality, right? And that, I talk all the time about we have to shrink batch size. Every haystack has a needle in it. And the bigger the haystack, the more needles are in it. If we shrink the size of the haystack, it's easier to find the needles. We probably won't get them all. But at least we're going to be less likely to be causing huge problems and less likely to be wasting money on non-valuable features. But we still have this mindset of, I have hope. It costs us so much money to come up with the requirements, so we have to do these big batches. We need to reduce the cost. We need to make things more efficient. We need to automate things that cause us to create larger batches. You don't have CAB because it creates larger batches. You automate the CAB process. You don't have manual security. That security theater increases the batches. You automate the security process. All of these things, it's all focused on efficiency to reduce costs so that we can run small experiments and spend less money delivering more value.
So from this experimentation point, I come to the next question where you have a lot of experience, is the dojos. So to me, a dojo is, okay, everybody says it's a place of practice and fine. So I feel that it's a great place to have these hypothesis-based experimentations being done. And I would like to know from you, from your experience, how a dojo works and how it is important, and how do you get your organization, whoever it is, to invest in dojo?
Each dojo is going to work differently. I'm a member of the Dojo Consortium, and we all have different flavors of what it is we're trying to accomplish with dojos. I think it's key that the on the surface, the dojo's job is immersive learning, is to train teams, not people, to how to solve the problem of how to do things better. And the thing I focus on is how do we deliver better. Okay, but that's not all a dojo should be for, because the dojos are the people that they talk to all the teams all the time. They see all the context. They have a broad view of where the problems on the front lines are across the entire organization. And I feel that a dojo should be responsible for providing information up, providing information down, providing information sideways, being a driver of cultural change, pointing out the strategic things in the organization that we need to change to architect for better value, helping to organize those things, working with the executives to say, hey, if we fix this thing over here, it'll have a broad impact across the entire organization to make things better. So let's work on that. How do we standardize language? How do we standardize testing terms? How do we standardize metric terms? How do we, standardize the right things to cause massive impact so that people can work together better? How do we build communities? I mean, I see dojos as the agents of change. My personal belief is that they shouldn't be giant organizations. Jonathan Smart, he talks about federating that model. And that's something that I've had as a strategy for years, because on large organizations, dojos don't scale. You can't physically run all the teams through a dojo if you have that many teams. And so you have to come up with ways to be a force multiplier instead of a direct trainer of teams. And so that federation model and also working with the entire organization is really key. I'd say that if you have a small organization, you don't need a dojo. You just need a couple of people who actually understand how to get it done, who will work directly with teams. But the people that are making these changes happen, the people that are enabling other people to deliver better, need to be recognized for the outcomes that they achieve, not just the people who are delivering better. Because the people who can enable that, it's honestly mostly a thankless job if you talk to many of the people in dojos. We don't get recognized for delivering because we're not delivering. We're helping teams deliver. And but we're also some of the most skilled people because we're pie-shaped. I mean, we have to be very broad, very deep on many things. Generalists who can work in multiple contexts and swap back and forth and not impose our will on other people, but help them solve the problems according to the principles. And I think if you're going to invest in that, then you need to invest in those people.
Right. So taking this one step forward is what I see in some of the organizations, like for example, IBM, they have created something called, they've created a portal, and it's like a dojo. It's like a virtual dojo.
Yeah.
Where they are bringing in the customers, and the customer and their own team works together for a month, 2 months, trying to solve a problem. And once they come to a solution which both parties feels that is good enough, is when they get the job from the customer to be actually implemented. So, I mean, I think that is another use which is coming up, is where you are co-creating that value, where you are experimenting that hypothesis, whether at all, or what is that the customer will be happy about and which is feasible.
I'm not. That's more of a. See, that's not a dojo model I've seen before. It's very similar. It sounds very similar to U.S. Bank's Design Studio, where they bring the business and user experience and actual end users, the bank customers together to come up with solutions. And I think that's a little different than how do we make it possible to help elevate teams so that they understand how to operate better, become better engineers. I think that's a different mission. The mission we're on is to make teams' lives better. Happy teams who can deliver with less toil, deliver better solutions, are more secure and more stable, better value. They care about their end users. I mean, that's the thing we're trying to grow is these teams that have a fierce desire to support the customer, that have pride in what they do.
Right. So the other point that I also discussed with Ross Clanton when I had his interview is typically we always have known that dojo means one large place where everybody comes together, co-located and all. But with the current scenario, that is not the case. People are working from home and distributed in different parts of the geography. So do you think that more virtual dojo will be the way to go rather than one physical location?
Ross is a friend of mine, and I disagree with you on this point, that you don't have to have a space to bring people in. There's, many dojos that are go to the team. In our experience, we go to the team, we work in their environment, There's pluses and minuses both ways. If you take a team out of their environment, then they have, there's that thought that we're in a new environment, we need to change the way we think. It's just that subconscious thing. That's true, but then they go back to their old environment, and their old environment is not necessarily conducive to the way they're working in the new environment. And so there's trade-offs, right? But I think, the model I really like is and the model I accidentally fell into just because of how we started was the Google test mercenaries that were around in the early 2000s. That the mercenaries would go into a team and spend a couple months in that team, joining that team and helping that team get to test level 1 or 2. And that's just what they did. And then they'd leave the team and go to other teams. Well, we've been operating that way, and it's really a lot easier to take that remotely. And when we had to go remote, there were some stumbling blocks at the beginning. We had, we lost some situational awareness. We were trying to figure some things out. We did some experimentation with mob programming and a few other techniques, and then we just started going again. And we ran a remote dojo in India where we're in Central Time, they're IST, and we successfully ran that in a federated model using the process that we believe scales. And it's quite successful, and we're taking that forward, and it works just fine remotely.
One of the reasons why I asked this is because I am starting with a new service, which is going to be virtual dojo. So people can come to my dojo. We will help them hypothesize the experiment, guide them through the whole process, see if it works or not. Based on that, you take back whatever you want. You do it in your own environment. So that's a new.
Well, and I'm gonna plug my friend Gary Gruber. He's got training that he put together called Engineering the Digital Transformation, White Belt, Green Belt, Black Belt. And White Belt is basically online course material for how to improve the flow of delivery, and it's helped set the context so that when you're working with people, you're not even have to start with setting the context, right? And it's honestly a model that I talked to him about. This was actually the strategy I came up with, is that we train people in the concepts, and then we find the people who are interested in being change agents and mentor them. And so that instead of growing a giant dojo, we spread the capability through an organization by creating those people who are recognized by their ability to help teams improve in a metrics-driven way, right? And that's exactly what his material does. And I think that's a really effective way of taking that online as well. So I'd look into that.
Yeah, Gary is pretty known to me, and we had some panel discussions and all with him also. Very recently, if you...
He's been a great mentor of mine over the years.
Yes. He was one of the speakers last year, that is 2019, when he was in India, and he was physically present in our event, DevOps India Summit event. So it was nice, and we actually spoke. We keep speaking to him. Very.
He's a smart guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Now, going back to the point of transformation, I think everybody talks about transformation, and one of the questions that keeps coming to my mind is when we are talking about agility. On one side, we are saying break things into smaller chunks and deliver faster, and that's without doing that, I don't think you really can do continuous delivery. You cannot have big chunks in a continuous delivery. It's not possible.
Yeah.
To me, transformation is big. It's a big bang approach, kind of. So how do we look at transformation? Should it be transformation or should it be evolution in the way that we are trying to do things?
Yeah, I don't like the word transformation because when I think about it, transformation just means change, right? It doesn't mean improvement. It just means change. We're trying to improve. And so, yeah, we should be evolving, right? We shouldn't have a big bang. We're going to change everything. Well, no. Let's look at what it is we actually want to improve, and then look at how to systematically improve that, right? And even in a large organization, you're really dealing with a whole bunch of small organizations. Very rarely do you have a large organization all doing the same thing. And so you can look at it that way. We have this small organization over here that's part of the value stream over here. We can start improving that, and over here. And you can start bringing that around and work on each one of the contexts of those groups, instead of looking at it from an entire enterprise model. Now, you have to have an enterprise strategy. You absolutely do. But it shouldn't be, a dictatorial, we're going to do things this way. It should be, we need to improve these things. And then allow those areas to do that improvement, and give them the guidance and the coaching, mentorship, tooling required to get it done. And with guardrails, so we're safe. But yeah, I don't like enterprise transformation. It's enterprise improvement. It's focusing on the bottom line, focusing on the customer, and continuously finding those things, preventing us from delivering value and making it better.
So, based on your experience of how things are going today and what we are wanting to do, or what would be the best way of doing things, if you get into an organization which is doing things in the current way, and you need to bring in the change, how will you go about it?
Well, first I'd try to make sure that we had air cover. The executive leadership was bought in, and not just, we need to change, but I was excited about being part of the change, that they will continually talk about what's improved. They'll talk about what experiments are running and the outcomes of those experiments, and celebrating the experiment, not just success. That they've got a dedicated focus on enterprise outcome metrics that we're trying to measure and improve, and making those visible and talking about them in a constructive way and not as a weapon. First we need that attitude, and then we start measuring. We baseline where we are. We have to know what we can't change if we don't know where we're changing from. And so we start measuring those things, making those metrics visible to the entire organization. Here's where we are at the team level, at the organization level, product level. How do we slice this? And get a good look at how we're actually delivering, how much time it takes, how much money it costs. How do we improve those things? And then we start systematically improving this value stream. But you can't just go in and say, let's change everything. It takes infrastructure to change. We build the infrastructure. We sell all the time. We talk to people about why this is better for them in their lives, why it's better for developers, why it's better for management, why it's better for the business. Do you want this to be better? Then we need to work together to make it better. But it is better. And people honestly don't believe it until they see it. And so you have to have people that can speak with authenticity, that they've been through this and it is better. For me, it's important that I'm seen as an engineer. I code. I'm not a theoretician running around talking about things I read in books. These are things I've experienced that I can speak to with authority because I've done it. And I can explain why it's better to me, someone who's carried a pager for 20 years. Right? Engineers like to hear that.
Absolutely. In the absence of that, then only people starts looking at where is it used, who is doing somewhere else. But that doesn't work out. Everyone's case is different.
Well, just copy Google. I double dog dare you to copy Google.
Then you are dead.
or Spotify. Even Spotify doesn't do Spotify, so.
Right. Absolutely. So, you have been talking about metrics. So, my question is, what do you think are the top 5 metrics that we should look at?
It depends. So if you read Accelerate, they talk about some of the core ones. Everyone points to 4, but they actually talk about more than 4 in Accelerate. It's just that they have 4 in a table, and so people look at those 4, right? You need to understand why those are important metrics. Delivery frequency is important, not because we're trying to deliver faster, but because we're trying to deliver smaller. Change fail rate's important because we need to make sure we have good quality. And the way I look at it is, I not just failed change, but also defect rates. I want to know defect rates because I don't trust customer NPS. They point to customer NPS, but customers, not everything can get customer NPS. What's the NPS score for a service that's used by another service? I don't know. But what I can look at is defect rates to find out how happy the customer of that service is with the outcomes and use that. But if we're trying to drive efficiency, we're really on a team in drive down the batch size. We're focusing on continuous integration because CI is the driver of driving down batch size. I can't do CI with big stories because there's too much uncertainty in the story. I can't do CI if I don't have testable acceptance criteria in the story, because I can't do trunk-based development without, writing tests at the same time I code, and I can't do that if I have uncertainty what the story actually is. And so if I'm looking at how frequently we're integrating tested code to the trunk that can go to production on demand, that we're 85, 90% certain that this is production-worthy code before it leaves our desktop, that we have stories that are 2 days or less. Paul Hammett would say 1 day or less. If you can't get a story down to 1 day, then you have too much uncertainty. You don't have the knowledge you need. Something is broken. We're a little bit more lenient. 2 days is fine because we run 2.5 day hyper sprints when we're in the dojo. Drive down that batch size. The time it takes to complete a story, how frequently we're delivering code that's to the trunk. Those metrics are important for improvement, and they are leading indicators for those outcome metrics. We won't have good delivery frequency if we're not breaking down small batches, like you said before.
Right. And that's the reason why we see you have, we call it that we are having CI/CD, and then we have branches which is lying there for 3 months without getting merged.
Charity Majors just released a post on Stack Overflow about people doing fake CD, and that most people aren't doing CD. I would agree. CD is not a pipeline. CD is continuously delivering value.
Absolutely.
And when I draw a CD pipeline, it includes work breakdown. It starts there. The CD pipeline doesn't start at commit. It starts with how we define what it is we're going to commit.
Yes.
And so it's everything. And so there's if you drew a Venn diagram of CD and DevOps would be a slightly larger circle.
Yeah, that's why, we met in Las Vegas. Mark Hornbeek was there, if you remember. So Mark talks about the continuous everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's funny that when I first met Ross Clanton, he gave me a Dojo sticker for the Target Dojo, which I put on my laptop. And I realized the power of branding. And that's the very first logo I came up with. It said the word continuous, and then I had an asterisk.
Right. So from here, let me go to one more point which everybody is talking about today. And it is quite, various people looks at it in different way. I want to understand what you think.
Sure.
That is the word productivity. What does productivity mean to you?
Productivity is the ability to satisfy the customer's needs.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have anything to do with volume of delivery. It has to do completely with value delivery. We're productive if we are delivering things that satisfies the customer's needs in a sustainable way. Because if you push productivity as volume and speed instead of outcome, then we'll not only miss delivering the customer's needs, but we can't do it sustainably. We can only do it in the short term. So that's what productivity means to me.
Absolutely. Just a couple of days back, Splunk had one of these sessions with Jin Kim, Ask Me Anything. And there, Jen King talked about it, that when we are talking about productivity means that each one of us also have time to spend with our family and enjoy what we want to do. Productivity is not just delivering more and more. And very relevant point.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have sustainable flow and sustainable. You have to have, you have to build resilient teams, and resilient teams have to have sustainable work. You can't burn out a team. It's not productive. And Gene's absolutely right. I agree with that.
So it was wonderful. I mean, when we looked at it and his points. So I mean, I keep getting this productivity issues where a lot of the people looks at it only from the point of view of velocity of, even instead of team, velocity of the individual. So
you know, we really should burn that word to the ground because it's so easily misunderstood. Velocity has nothing to do with speed, unless you're outside of Agile or outside of Scrum. You know, we just stop using that word. But yeah, I mean, productivity has nothing to do with throughput. Productivity has nothing to do with typing. You know, this software delivery is not a physical activity. It's entirely mental. And then after we solve the problem, we type up the solution. The typing isn't the work. And we're not productive because we're heads down typing. We're not productive because we're shipping a whole bunch of features. I talked to somebody whose company was incentivizing, their bonus plan was based off feature delivery. I said, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. He's like, yeah, I know, it's terrible, right? Because that's all we're focusing on is feature delivery instead of value.
That's true. And whether it works, it doesn't work, whether it is useful for the customer, as I say, that when we are writing code, no value is created. When we are maintaining servers or maintaining databases, no value is created. Yeah. The only time when value is created is when the intended users uses my product or service and gets the intended benefit.
You know, an idea I got from Gary that it's one of those things where it's obvious when you think about it. My background is supply chain. I've been writing supply chain software before I started focusing on continuous delivery, which is just the supply chain of software. Okay. He talked about looking at code change delta as inventory. That we're in the job, especially if you're in retail or manufacturing, of controlling inventory. Inventory is not a positive, it's a negative, it's a cost. And so you need to, the only way you can control your inventory is by not doing any development or by shipping it. Yes. Right? You don't want to grow your inventory. And I think people should think about it that way. That's risk.
Limit the work in progress.
Yes. Limit WIP, and you can measure that directly in source control.
Absolutely.
What has not been delivered.
Finally, we'll come to the last part, which is everybody is excited about after the SolarWinds, is how do we bring in security? When we talk about DevSecOps, we say that security is everybody's responsibility.
Yeah.
When we also started, I think when you started, when I started, that time also nobody had told us that as a coder, we have to think of security.
No, I mean, who could get inside the firewall in the place where I was deploying? You know, never worried about it.
So now how do we bring in that concept of that change in the mindset of the people to start owning security?
I think we need to, continue talking about the outcomes of poor security we see splattered all over newspapers. And we need to bring security into the conversation. So you're the security experts. We need you working with us as we're building things, not checking for security at the end. It's like any other quality issue. We're going to have poor quality if we're checking for quality at the end. It's just 100%. And we're going to have insecure solutions. We need dedicated training for people on security, the same way we need dedicated training for people on testing, because neither one is taught in college. which is astounding that we're in the 21st century, the second decade of the 21st century. We're not talking about testing security in college, right? So we need dedicated training for that and for the workforce. It's not going to magically appear, and you don't want people to just kind of learn it from experience of failing. Especially with security, right? You need that dedicated training, but we need the better tools. We need those tools in the pipeline, because any manual security check we do is security theater. It's going to be ineffective and it will be forgotten, especially in a hurry. And I need a secure solution at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm trying to repair a down system. That's not an excuse that it's 3 o'clock in the morning, we're tired. We need to build our pipelines to make sure that we are safe fixing things when we're panicking.
Absolutely. So how do you get your security SMEs and the GRC SMEs work together with your teams?
You make an organizational decision that it's not okay to have silos. You guys go talk to each other. Let's solve this problem together, right? You incentivize people talking to each other. That's how that works. Or you just depend on interested people trying to break down silos at the grassroots, which doesn't work very well.
So there is apprehensions from both sides. How do you break that apprehension?
Talking. I mean, this is delivery is a people problem and a communications problem. It's not a technical problem. Mm-hmm. It's mostly the people. Mm-hmm. And, when the first time we tried to, the team I was on, we were trying to focus on how do we do CD for the first time, we had to break down a lot of apprehension from, infrastructure, database, these external organizations that had their own processes in place for the old way of working. And we had to go and talk to them and explain to them what we're trying to do and why it was going to be better for all of us, and help them learn how, like for database, right? Help them learn how to automate things that they were doing manually, turn them into developers so that we could work together, and build that rapport, build that relationship, not look at each other as adversaries, but as teammates trying to solve a problem together, get them excited about the solution, show them about all the good things we can do together. And it takes time, but it's a people problem. Scott Nasello at Nike, I was talking to him at DevOps Enterprise Summit in 2017 about what we're trying to do, or 2018, I forget, one of those years, what the thing we're trying to do. And Scott said to me, he said that we should have actually gone to psychology school instead of engineering. He said, because we're trying to hack the biggest undocumented API. And he's true. I've repeated that constantly. I love Scott for that phrase, is hacking the biggest undocumented API. I mean, it's what we have to do. We're solving a people problem so that we can deliver better technical solutions to solve a business problem.
Absolutely. Great. So that's quite a lot of interesting discussions that we had, and a lot of things we share the common things, I think.
Yeah, I've got scars.
Right. So thanks a lot. Thanks for your time and this wonderful session. I'm sure everybody will be able to use this and learn from it. We will publish it in some time, maybe next week or so. And yeah, that's great.
Well, I appreciate it. I enjoy this conversation.
Thank you.